Hello everyone and welcome. This will be the hopefully short review of Fanatec's DD1, which I finally got my hands on thanks to, well, Fanatec in this case. Let's talk you through. And the first thing you'll notice when opening the box is the whole quality and haptic feel that you get. It starts with a box. And then how the wheel is in there. It's a totally kind of different experience than I had with a VRS because it just came in very normal boxes, which for me perfectly fine. But just you just see some more dedication there on Fanatec's end when they say you rather high quality and high price product. It also reflects in the whole packaging. So the first impression you have is really nice there. Product looks awesome with a matte finish on the base. All the buttons, the metallic, the clicky feel, everything of that is really good to begin with. But let's talk about the important parts, and I hope this video will clear some things up. So when I mounted the wheel yesterday, I got up really early because I was expecting this to, building on the rig always takes a lot of time, and I thought, better give yourself more time so you're not going to be stressed out. In fact, so I got up like 6:30 in the morning or something. For whatever reason, I was awake. Maybe I was even a little excited. And then I, started. So I unpacked the thing, quickly checked if I had the right screws, if I had to get some more. In fact, it's just 3M6 screws, very normal ones that I need. That shouldn't be too long, but check the manual for that. And I was pretty quickly in a position where I could just mount it to the rig. So of course I had to get the old wheel off, which just how the construction evolved over time. Certainly took longer even than mounting the new one. But then just taking the standard SimLab mounting deck that I still has the 3 holes already in the exact position for the Fanatec DD1. So I really just had to place it on there, adjust the position a bit so to fit my poster, and then I fit in the three screws, and I was already ready to go. What you notice really quickly is that just the whole concept of Fanatec is dialed or geared towards ease of access and making this product mass market ready, which results in there being less cables, which also has to do with which is why they chose a different motor, for example. So they have an outrunner motor as opposed to most other direct drives being in-runner motors. But this allows them a lot of space in the middle where they can put all the cables for their wheels, so you don't end up with a cable, outside of the wheel, which is a great thing. The other thing you'll notice is that overall there isn't many cables. If I look at my VRS wheel, then I have the separate encoder box that has the power cable that goes into that. And then from there, it's 2 cables actually to the base and 1 to the PC for the USB. So there's 4 cables involved in that already. Then onto the VRS base, there's these 2 power or data cables. Plus, I still have that 5th cable, which is from the rim because it doesn't connect to the base, of course. So there's a lot of cabling going on that I have to deal with. And with having these, I'm just looking over there, with having these rather complex setups, meaning there's the base, there's the monitors, there's the pedals, and somewhat there are several electrical fields. I somewhat feel there could be an interference with the USB signal at times, or maybe with the monitor even. So having less cables in the end is a value in its own, and Fanatec delivers on that. So there's really only the power cable and there's the USB cable, and that's it. Once you start the base, after you install the drivers, all super easy, to be honest, not really worth mentioning. You will at some point be confronted with the tuning manual where you have all the options to dial the wheel into your liking. So I definitely want to run you through these settings, and I'll post my ACC and iRacing settings towards in that video or in the end, or link. It's already on the Discord if you want. So first, the nice thing is you can, of course, control all this from the wheel itself. You don't really have to go into the driver, but, whatever you prefer, really. Then you do have kind of 2 displays. There's this one display on the rim itself, because you can use this rim on a Club Sport wheel, for example, as well, where the base doesn't have the display. Though there is a second display on the base itself that offers a little more information. There are at least short tooltips or something. And then in the Fanalab, you have the enlarged tooltip. So there's enough explanation of these settings. And if that isn't enough, there's the manual. Let's talk you through. I think steering angle should be the easiest setting. I had it in another video. You just wanted to match what the in-game car has, and you wanted to match this setting in the game and in the Fanatec. That's it. Overall force feedback strength. I think that I mentioned this also in an earlier video where I talked about the whole clipping thing. You usually want to run this high, right? Maybe not 100%, especially when you're a direct drive beginner. These things are really powerful. So maybe you want to start with something like 80 as opposed to what the recommendation is, like 45. I just think that's generally too low and just makes it very likely for you to run into clipping. Next one is the force feedback linearity, which I think is a bit misleading because what I feel is, not what I feel is, but what it says as well is, it makes it unlinear. So when you turn the linearity on, it kind of caps the peaks in the force feedback, and it kind of makes the wheel really light. In both games, or in all the games that I played, really, I turned the linearity off and then don't bother with it again. Next thing are all these three natural settings, which natural damper, natural friction, and natural inertia. The first doing something like it dampens the wheel, it creates a friction in the wheel based on how quickly it turns. The natural friction creates a friction that you would kind of experience when the car is, say, is stationary and you turn the wheel. When the tires have grip on the road, there's kind of a resistance that, of course, in your road car, you don't feel because it has power steering, but the race cars, maybe they don't or not as much. And additionally, there's friction in the steering rack itself, and you can kind of get part of this base friction that's in the steering rack when the game doesn't simulate it on its own via this setting. Natural inertia creates the sensation of the wheel having more weight, so it takes longer to accelerate it. However, I think for ACC, you mainly want this off, except for the natural damper a bit. I think you'll be fine just turning it off entirely as well. Don't think these are important for ACC, because ACC in itself has great force feedback. You don't need much of these settings there. Force feedback interpolation, also in ACC, not really needed. There's enough signals coming with 300 plus hertz update rate, which means there's already kind of built-in interpolation, and you don't really need that from the settings here, so I use that at 0. Force feedback intensity, then, this is how harsh you'll feel all the details and how high the force will eventually go and how notchy and crisp the overall experience is. Play around with it. Maybe you like a little more than I do. Overall, somewhere between 70 and 100, maybe 60 and 100, depending to your liking, is where you want to have that. That gives you the detail, but it also gives you the spikes. So beware of that. All the next three, just leave them where they are. Perfectly fine. Most games don't even react to that setting in the first place. Brake level indicator is really only when you do have the V3 pedals connected, and the vibration strength is something I wouldn't really use because it's so game dependent at which braking percentage you would want the vibration in the rim to kick off. Since the setup works rather quickly, especially when you have someone giving you his settings, which you can rely on, then you get to play rather quickly. And that's what I did. So I went to the track, took the car and track that I drove the last time around to have the best comparison, which is Imola and the BMW, and started driving. And immediately you get warm with the wheel. There isn't much time that you need to find the rhythm with it or anything. The only thing will be the change of the rim size, going from the 32 centimeters that I normally have down to the, I think, 28 or even less for the Formula rim that the DD1 came with. You do have all these buttons, which are perfectly fine. You can map so many things on that. But let's talk about that in a second. Let's go for the driving feel first, where you just feel the same as on any direct drive, really, I think. everything is right away there. It's very crisp. It's very clear what you need to do. The car's telling you everything. But I think this is more down to just ACC's rather good feedback. And you don't really have to change anything to that. You don't have to use all these filters, dampers, extra settings that the wheels have, because ACC just puts out a good force feedback signal that the games can work with. And that is something you really, I don't know, you must like one way or the other. So then I'm driving around here. I think I was trailing my lap times by 2 or 3 tenths after just a few laps, so got accustomed really quickly. And I think it speaks for the wheel that there isn't much of a difference in the end in terms of force feedback, because in the end the game, or the game designers, Kunos in this case, had an idea what they want to deliver in terms of force feedback. And when several direct drive wheels feel the same, and I do have to say I had the same experience with the SC2 that was driving at a friend's place, with the VRS, and now with the DD1 as well, everything kind of feels the same as the car should feel, because that's how the designers of the game have intended it to be. So it's between all these direct drives, I don't think in terms of ACC there is a reasonable difference between the wheels in the way how they feel. The only thing you can talk about is all these different filters should you want them, but I think none of these really adds to the wheel in the sense that you could drive quicker with them or more consistent for that matter. The only thing, if anything, is there's a personal preference where you would maybe want this natural damper or friction thing, because the VRS, for example, is rather light around the center because there's no force sent by the game initially. And with that friction and damper setting that the DD1 now offers, is you can have this base resistance in the wheel that some would argue is a little bit more realistic. That's, I think, in terms of force feedback, the main difference. Everything is super crisp, everything is clear, the game does give you all the information in the end through the wheel, and you're immediately find yourself in the right spot. There's no questioning whatsoever if this is right or wrong, or if you need to change something. It just feels right from the start. So I think it's a really good thing for a force feedback wheel that you don't have to worry about the force feedback being right or wrong. So the Fanatec DD1 on that end definitely delivers. And I think just from the video itself you can see that all the reactions are there. There's a lot of detail, lots of micro movements. You can see over the bumps there and the exit of the chicane, for example, that you can, if you slow it down once you come across that point, you can really count the yellow bumps there in the force feedback. You really get these 3 hits on the exit if you take it too far, which is the same on the VRS, same on the Simracing. So I don't think the Fanatec lags anywhere behind these two. Going over to iRacing, I think it was a bit of a different story. Not that the Fanatec wouldn't be good and you wouldn't get all these details, but I think the main issue is iRacing itself, and it's I mean, I don't want to judge because I'm not too much into the details, but still they run the force feedback at 60 Hertz, so there's less commands coming to the wheel. And the main issue I had is I had to fiddle with the wheel and its settings to get rid of the wheel oscillating around the center position if you take your hands off on the straight, on the braking, whatnot. And I find this really, I know AC had that, I know it's a thing on RF2, and you can dial the wheel in to work around that using all these friction settings. I don't want to go too much into detail, I'll just post my settings later on, and as I said already, on Discord. These settings kind of also influence the amount of detail that you get, and I feel you kind of have to do a compromise between getting rid of the oscillation, at least to some degree, so the wheel isn't dangerous in the end, and to keep all the detail alive in the game. And yeah, I played around with it probably an hour or two to really understand all these settings and how they affect the game and the feel. And afterwards, I think I found a good compromise where I retain that detail to a reasonable amount, or not giving up as much, while also keeping the wheel in a place where it wouldn't kill me immediately if I take my hands off the wheel. And the oscillation is, well, it can start still. As soon as you easily touch the wheel on its borders, the oscillation would stop again. So it's tamed a bit, it's not dangerous anymore. And I think iRacing was well drivable. Also drove that before with the VRS. The main difference again being the difference in diameter of the wheels I was using, and I felt actually better with the DD1 because now I had the smaller diameter Formula rim in the Formula 3 car, which kind of makes sense, and it allowed me to just have a bit of a quicker reaction time when the car started oversteering or something like that, and turn in a bit quicker, which you require on Formula cars to do. So I guess again, even on iRacing, I think the differences between these wheels are more rumored than they are actually true. I think I can get all the detail out of the game that I need. I've driven the SC2, which indeed I found really great on iRacing, but I'm pretty confident that the Fanatec isn't lacking behind that. Some people say there isn't the detail, they couldn't drive competitively with that. I think it's more investing the time fiddling with all the settings and really understanding them to make use of, or to get all the detail out of the game, while kind of getting this feeling of the natural friction in the wheel, not having the notches too hard in the steering, and not getting this oscillation in the end. So even though I'm not an iRacing expert, I don't play it an awful lot, actually basically not at all, but I still kind of felt I got to a point where I got the information from the car where I could drive it reasonably, and so I think there is no real argument against the DD1 here, and I expect more issues with dialing in the software than there actually being the wheel limited from a design perspective. So when there isn't much in terms of how different the force feedback is between all of these wheels, there is still the price point of the Fanatec equipment, which is slightly above at least some of the OSW variants that you can buy. And of course, I think it's pretty similar to the Simracing, actually. So where are other differences where Fanatec shines? And I think the first thing you're having is that everything comes out of one hand, right? You just go to the Fanatec website, you get the base, you get the wheel, it will fit and it will work. I know from experience when I got the VRS, I had to figure out, wait, what's the shaft size? What does my connector have to be? Is it a 50 mil? Is it a 70 mil? Which end do they actually mean by 50? Which by 70? And just to figure out all these informations just takes time. It's not necessarily difficult, but it's a kind of a pain in the ass. And just to be sure, with Fanatec, you have one solution in, just that one ecosystem. You just go to the website, click your things, and you know they're going to work well together. You don't need any adapters, at least in some cases. But overall, this is really, really easy. And I think that's where Fanatec then really shines. You have this wide ecosystem. You can say you don't want to be stuck in an ecosystem, but in the end, I don't think that matters as an argument. So you go to the website, you can choose from a variety of wheels, and then you just take it off, the one that you had before, and you put the new one on. Adjust the settings in the game to fiddle with the new buttons, and that's it. Then you play. But if you get another rim from a third party for a Simracing, or from a fourth party, or from Poland or Spain or somewhere, then you always have to know what kind of connector do I need. Is this a Simracing 2? Do you have a Simracing 1? Is it an OSW? And you always have to at least spend more time and thought into it to get your stuff and actually make it work. Then you sometimes have to work with an additional cable and get the USB stuff working and all of that. So I think this is where one thing is that where the Fanatec shines is the ecosystem, and in the end they are a reasonably sized company by now, driving a good amount of revenue. But they also, I think, are a company that can handle I know they're the news that some people have issues with the support, but generally I think they're the only company really offering the support while having a huge customer base. I never had problems personally. When I got my first Fanatec, I had to kind of refurbish it in a way. So I sent it in, they did their thing, it came back a week later, and the wheel was working ever since. Now Arthur is driving with it still, and that's 2 years after, not a single problem. And then again, they're so big in size that they have reasonable resources and manpower and staff size that they can deal with issues when, say, a new game comes out. They can have the drivers updated. They can offer the profiles to these companies to support the games. And these are all things where the smaller companies, the OSW selling companies, they are really focused on this hardcore sim racing market, which is something where Fanatec just offers way more, right? You can use the direct drive on all the sims. You can use it on the simcade games like the Formula 1 game. You can use it in Dirt 1 to 5. You can use it in whatever you want to play, really. You can be sure that Fanatec will have the driver updates rather sooner than later, and also have the profiles to really support the wheel natively in the game, which I think is a really strong point, especially for people who just enter the space, or just people who have a lack of time and just enjoy something rather working out of the box. What else comes to mind is really the rim itself, or all the rims really, because they have a huge amount of buttons. They have different styles of buttons. I definitely like the options to use the rotaries in different ways, where you can use them as up and down working buttons, like I have them on the wheel that I'm running on the VRS. You can work them as a position switch, so you literally have 12 different positions on this rotary, and you can also have some sort of permanent fire from this button, so it would say 5555555, something like that. How was it called on gamepads earlier 20 years ago? However, so just having that variety on the single rim, I think, is another strength that you have. To close this video, I do recommend this wheel, simply for the reason the ease of access is superb. The way to install it is super quick. Understanding, getting behind the settings doesn't take a huge amount of time, and out of the box, it just works, especially when you're playing ACC. I had to do basically nothing to dial it in, just do the few standard settings that you have to do, and then it was working. It was a bit more fiddly on iRacing, but I think all the wheels are fiddly, and if I look at the Simcube 2 software, there's 1,000 settings that I have no chance understanding. I enjoy the VRS for not having any settings at all, so I don't also have to worry about them. However, from a driving perspective, all of the direct drive wheels, I think, offer you more or less, and there's really, if anything, nuances between them. So I recommend them all. I also recommend the Fanatec. I couldn't find anything that's an argument against it. If anything, there's more arguments towards the Fanatec ecosystem, the upgradability, their likely support of future games that's going to become really quick, all the games having Fanatec profiles, you being able to swap to any wheel that you want. The thing definitely looks good. And in the end, of course, you'll have the question if I'm changing my base or not. In the end, I will tell you, I won't. But that's not down to Fanatec being somehow mediocre or worse than the VRS. My only reason really is that I got really accustomed to the setup that I'm having. I didn't have a single issue with it ever. I do think I get all the information and the same information that I get from any other direct drive wheel. But what I don't have on other wheels is this rather special rim that I'm having from the real Z4 car. So and I don't particularly, I'm not a particular fan of the Formula rims in general for the GT cars that I'm mainly driving. So next step, I would have gotten another GT rim from Fanatec, would have had to spend more money. And I think I'm 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 euros into my sim racing setup, and I think I'm done on that end. Hopefully, you're never sure in sim racing. So in the end, I'm not switching to that base, for the only reason of the convenience and being used to already what I'm having. But what I'm doing certainly is I'm going to send this to Arthur right away, so he has a better wheel and he becomes an even better teammate, and then hopefully we win more races in the future together. I thank everyone for joining. This wheel is recommended. If you want to support this channel, simply use the Fanatec affiliate link, and if there's more question, head over to Discord, reach out, we'll get you sorted.